Hi, welcome to today's Family Read Aloud. Friday. It's hot out there. Um, we are making our way through Harbor Me by Jacqueline Woodson. About 6, roughly 11-year-olds that are grouped together at school, and they've been given this hour a week to talk just with each other without adults present. And when we left off yesterday, Esteban, one of the kids, had been absent for a while, and the other 5 were very worried about him. And didn't know if he'd been taken like his father or what had happened to him. And he had just come back into the, he had just walked back into the classroom. And he told them he had had to move to a different place in New York, and his father was still in Florida. And then he read a new poem his father had sent him, and he shared that with the class. So we're going to pick up with chapter 30 today. And in the night, when the dog barks at shadows, tell him I'm not afraid. I am not. Start again. Chapter 30. And in the night, when the dog barks at shadows, tell him not to be afraid. In the cafeteria that day, Esteban asked if he could record the poems he had read to us. I don't know if I'm going to be here tomorrow, he said, or the next day or the day after that. But I thought you were back, son, Amari said. Esteban looked down at his empty tray. He had eaten everything on it so fast. Amari handed over his milk, and I gave him my leftover beef taco. We don't know what's going to happen, he told us later when we got to the art room. They might be trying to deport my mommy, too, and that's why we moved to my aunt's house. It's like my mommy has to hide now. But why? Ashton asked. Esteban shrugged. She's from the DR, too. My aunt, she was born here, and her husband is from America. My mommy said if she gets sent back, me and my sister can stay with my aunt, but I don't want that. He climbed up to his place by the window, but he didn't get quiet and stare out. He turned toward us and crossed his legs. When he did, I saw the holes in the bottoms of his shoes. His socks, which were probably bright white when they were new, were grayish and barely covered his ankles. His uniform pants were too short now. I turned on the recorder and put it on my desk. Esteban nodded, repeated what he had just said, and continued. They took my Poppy. They came to his job when he was leaving, and they said he didn't belong in this country. Maybe always in his heart he knew the day was coming. When I was little, he used to always say to me, every day is a blessing from God, Esteban. Even if it rains or gets so cold you can see your breath and think your own bones are going to break underneath your skin, this too is God's blessing. My Poppy said, one day your days are all gone, and then that's when you have nothing. I was probably a stupid little kid whining because I wanted a toy or ice cream. I don't even remember, but now I know something. I know we had everything we needed. We had food every day, and coats, and boots, and warm socks, and water. Before, you used to hear the word immigration, and it sounded like everything you ever believed in. It sounded like Feliz Cumpleaños, and Merry Christmas, and Welcome Home. But now you hear it, and you get scared because it sounds like a word that makes you want to disappear. It sounds like someone getting stolen away from you. What's going to happen, E? Amari asked. Esteban shrugged. My mommy says you have to pay for lawyers and stuff to fight it, but we don't have money for that. I think we're all going to have to go back to the DR, and that would suck because I would miss New York, and I would miss all of you guys. We sat there silent, all of us looking at Esteban. It felt like he was already almost gone, and we were trying hard to remember him. Chapter 31. After Christmas vacation, everyone returned looking a little bit different. But the thing that mattered the most was that Esteban had come back too. Tiago came back wearing glasses, thin wire frames that he took off to show us how they caught the light and bounced rainbows around the room. They reminded me of my uncle's glasses. I watched Tiago place them gently back over his nose. Years from now, I thought there'll be people who never knew Tiago before glasses. Those are nice kicks, Ashton said, staring longingly at Holly's sneakers. Those are the ones I asked for Christmas. But I got these instead. Ashton made a face and held up his feet. His sneakers were white and cheap-looking, like the kind they sold in discount stores. And my mom started singing that "You Get What You Get" song when I complained. He put his feet down. You lucked out, Halls. It's not luck, Amari said. Holly's a rich girl. Everybody knows that. I'm not, Holly said. Don't start in on me, Amari. But Holly pulled her feet back like she was embarrassed by her sneakers. I had gone with her and Kira the day she got them. Her mom took one look at the price and called on Jesus. Nobody in their house is religious, but for some reason that's what came to her lips when she saw the price. But I love them, Holly said, and they can be one of my Christmas presents. And plus, those are what everybody's wearing. I waited for Kira to say what she always said to Holly. If everybody jumped off a bridge. But she didn't. I'm going to get you these, she said really soft, so that Holly had to stop tying the sneakers and look up to hear her. But I want you to know that everybody is not wearing them. I want you to understand what that means. Holly nodded. A look came over her as though the words were finding a room in her brain. Geez, Ma, I know, she said. Sometimes I thought Kira didn't know Holly like I knew her. Some days I saw her looking at her daughter like she couldn't believe they were related. But it wasn't Holly's fault that she'd always known she could walk into a store and ask for expensive sneakers and get them. And Holly was really generous. Even when we were little, she made sure I had whatever she had, from candy to new comic books to time with Kira. She made her mom buy 2 of things and always had one waiting for me. I don't want to have this alone, she would say. That's not even a little bit fun. Wish I had such nice kicks, rich girl, Amari whispered loud enough for everyone to hear. He was not going to drop it. Delete you, Amari, Holly blurted out. Why are you even in my ear? You two just love to argue, I said. My uncle says that sometimes 2 people come into the world having the same fight they left the world having. Holly looked at me. What does that even mean? I pointed to her and Amari. You two. Maybe in another life you guys were having this fight. My uncle says people just keep getting reincarnated into each other's lives until they figure it out. Tiago laughed. You guys been fighting since the days of dinosaurs. I don't know. No offense, Amari, Holly said, but you better not be getting all up in my next life. I don't even like you on this one. What's not to like about Amari? Ashton said. There's not really anything not to like about him. Yeah, Tiago said. He's not really. I mean, he's not really a bad guy, not really. The boys laughed, even Esteban, who was sitting in the window seat watching the sleet come down. He had draped his Yankees jacket over his shoulder like a cape. Amari smiled. I shouldn't have ever told you all about that name, he said. But Amari wasn't really laughing with his friends. He was studying Holly. It dawned on me then, clear and loud as a siren, that it mattered to Amari what Holly thought about him. Her words had stung, and just like our tilting earth, Amari was off balance, hurt by her words. I touched Holly's arm. Couldn't she see it? The way Amari's face had dropped? You don't really not like him, right, Holly? I tried to get her to look at me, to see me pleading with her. She shrugged. The room got eerily quiet. Before I could say anything else, Holly said, nobody chooses where they get born or who they get born to. Maybe my parents are rich, but that doesn't mean I am. I mean, I am now, I guess, but... Holly looked up at Amari. It's not my fault. I don't think Miss Laverne wanted us to not like each other in this room, Tiago said. I think she wanted us to get closer, not more far away from each other. Holly picked up her knitting needles. She knitted slowly now, like her mind was someplace else. Her feet were still tucked beneath her chair. If anybody in this room wanted these sneakers, I'd give them to you. My uncle says our lives are dashes, from birth to death. And each day is a new dash, another day, another chance. I wanted to tell him that people are dashes too, each a tiny bit of a connection to the next. Holly glanced over at Amari, then down at his drawing and back at him again. I don't like when you call me rich girl, Mar, she said. Amari shrugged. Then I won't anymore. That's all you had to say. You didn't have to come at me all mean and whatnot. Dash to dash, my uncle would say. Holly to Amari, me to Holly, Perito to Tiago, Esteban to his father, Amari to Ashton, Miss Laverne to all of us. My uncle said when people come together and they all care about the same things, it's called a harmonic convergence. He said all that energy together can shift a whole planet. The sleeting stopped. The sun came out. We good? Amari asked. And Holly said, yeah, Amari, we're good. Chapter 32. How come you haven't talked about your dad in the art room? Holly asked me. It was Friday night and almost 9:30. My hair was washed, oiled, and cornrowed. Kira had finished it while me and Holly ate spinach pizza at the kitchen table. Now Kira had gone off to a movie with Holly's father, and the babysitter was downstairs asleep on the couch. How many Fridays had I spent in this house? In this room? So many I had lost count. If someone spun me around 100 times and drove me all over Brooklyn, then walked me blindfolded back into Holly's house, I would know it. I would know the smell of it, oil soap and fireplace wood. I would know the sound of it, a creaking fifth step between the second and third floors, creaking banister between the first and second. And if Kira held out her hand to me, I would know it was hers by the softness of her fingers, the length of her nails, the many, many times I'd felt its weight on my head. We were sitting on Holly's queen-size bed, combing her doll's hair. Holly had white everything on her bed, sheets, comforter, pillowcases, because she had insisted on dark purple walls. Kira wouldn't say yes unless everything else in the room was white. On the floor beside their bed was a round white shag rug. The doll I had was wearing a green nightgown. Holly's doll was in overalls, and we had changed their outfits twice already. The dolls all had stories and books that came with them about how they had gotten to be true Americans. They were expensive, and while Holly had all of them, I only had one, a doll who had escaped slavery and gotten free in Philadelphia. We could go months without even looking at the dolls. Then other times we played with them for hours. You haven't told them about your dad or your mom, Holly said. Are you going to? She stopped braiding her doll's hair and looked at me. But I do talk, I said. I talk into the recorder at night. In my room. I'm on there, too. I don't know, Holly said. I don't know if that's fair for everybody. Everybody else is spilling their guts, and you're talking in private. Are you ashamed of your life? No, of course not. But Holly kept looking at me. She blinked slowly. I don't have anything to be ashamed of, I said. Then how come you don't talk about your dad or tell them about your uncle? All the times Amari's called me rich girl, you just sat there. What did you want me to say? Holly shrugged. No, Holly, tell me. What did you want me to say? I wanted you to say I'm a rich girl too. But I'm not. Holly shook her head. I'm not. I felt my voice getting high. Haley, listen to me. Your uncle owns that whole building you live in. He drives a nice car. He works at home doing tech stuff when he wants. But he doesn't have to. Not like my dad, not like Amari's dad or all the other kids' parents either. When your grandparents died, they left your uncle and dad all their money. When your mom died, they put all the insurance money in the bank for you. When you turn 21, you get it. How do you even know this? I said. I mean, I knew some of it, like about the building and stuff, but I never thought of us as rich. Your uncle and my mom talk, that's how. Grown-ups tell each other things and they talk to other grown-ups, and sometimes us kids are around listening. I didn't say anything. It felt strange. Weird. Rich? My uncle never bought me expensive clothes. We never went on fancy vacations, and most of our furniture was stuff my uncle had bought from thrift shops. He found the coffee table on the street. One leg was shorter than the other three. Holly put her doll on the pillow, and I leaned against the wall behind the bed. I'm not trying to be mean to you, Haley. I know sometimes it sounds that way because I just say stuff. I know you're not being mean, I said, but I kept my eyes on the doll. Her tiny earrings sparkled. I think sometimes, Holly said slowly, as though the idea was just now coming to her, life gives you stuff you don't want, but you have to take it anyway. Like my hair, I said, or what happened to my mom and dad. Holly nodded. Yeah, but your hair is amazing. And all the stuff you know is amazing, Holly. After a minute, after thinking about what she said about me being rich, after knowing that she was right and that maybe somewhere, buried with a lot of other stuff, I knew it too, I said, and you make us think. Holly shrugged and grabbed a bunch of her braids with both hands. But sometimes my mouth hurts people too. Like I hate that I can't stop it from saying things, and I can't stop my body from jumping up and moving around when Miss Laverne tells us to stay in our seats. Sometimes I just want to be regular. But you're not regular. You're Holly. I love your big mouth and your jumpy body, and how you make us all laugh in a good way. Holly got up from the bed and started walking fast back and forth across the room. I used to think art started mostly because of me and you, she said. I know that's crazy. I mean, think about it. She stopped pacing and looked at me. If I hadn't met you, it wouldn't be the six of us. We're lucky the way we all got dropped there, the way we all ended up in Miss Laverne's class together, right? All of that happened because A, B, and C happened. And that led to D, E, and F, and so on. And so basically your whole life is the whole alphabet. And the alphabet is people meeting people, leading to other people meeting, until we're old and then we die. Or sometimes we're not old and we die, I said quietly. Yeah, Holly climbed on the bed and put her arms around me. That's true too. I'll talk, I said, next Friday. And I'll be there right next to you, okay? That night, as always, we slept with our backs to each other, our spines, as always, touching. Chapter 33. The following Friday, Holly sat next to me and nodded toward the recorder. My own hands were sweating as I pressed the button and looked up at the others. I was surprised how nervous I was. No one had ever said, don't talk about your dad, But for some reason I had buried the story deep. Now I was going to tell it. To my friends. I kept saying that again and again in my head. They're your friends, Haley. They're your friends. But just as I turned on the recorder, Esteban said, I have another poem for my poppy. And Amari said, yes. Holly nodded at me. Esteban climbed down from the window seat and pulled the poem from his pocket. It was as wrinkled as his uniform. I have to keep it on me, he said. Crazy baby cousin always takes my things and messes with them. I put the other poems up on a shelf, but he can climb. Esteban smiled and shook his head. He looked tired but happy as he unfolded the poem, holding the page at its edges. His hand trembled as he read first the Spanish and then more slowly and beautifully the English. And when darkness came and the night felt like it wanted to swallow me, the echo of lights out was thrown back at the guards in so many beautiful languages that it sounded like the song the world has been trying to teach us since the beginning of time. He folded the poem carefully and put it back in his pocket. It means that there are all these different kinds of people in detention with my puppy. And when the guards tell them it's time for lights out, they all yell it back in their own language. So my puppy hears all the languages and it's like they're singing him to sleep. Esteban touched the pocket with the poem in it. That's all I have to say for now. He climbed back onto the window ledge and wrapped his arms around his legs, resting his head on his knees. After everyone told him how beautiful the poem was, I stood up. I want to talk now, I said. You guys have all told your stories about your families, and there's a story I haven't told you. I looked over at Holly, and she nodded again. It's about my life. It's about my father. Esteban turned to me. And my mother, I said, my voice cracking. It's about what happened to me when I was little, and when I first met Holly's mom, Kira. Chapter 34. The first time I met Holly's mom, I was 7 years old, and Holly and I had only known each other for a few months. Kira, Holly's mom, had asked my uncle about doing my hair, and he agreed. No, he hadn't agreed. He nearly jumped into her arms before she could even get the words out. So the first time I was at their house, when I was sitting in their kitchen with my hair washed and dripping onto the towel, and Kira asked me about my full name, about my family, the rest of the group got so quiet I stopped talking. My throat felt like it was closing up. You got this, Red, Amari said to me. His smile loosened the words. I looked at Holly helplessly. It's okay, she said. I'm here with you. I can help if you need me. Everyone nodded. I smiled at her relieved, and Holly put her arm around me. The thing I've never told you, guys, is that my dad's in prison. Your dad's in prison? Tiago and Amari said at the same time. I nodded. For what? Tiago asked. Did he rob somebody? He was driving, I said slowly. He was driving a car. My mother was in it. The room felt like it was breathing for me. As I told the story of the accident, Esteban's eyes filled and Ashton put his head down in his hands. When I got to the part about my father running home for my uncle's help, Amari said, Geez, Red, I didn't even know. He said it quietly, almost under his breath, but in the words there was so much love that it felt like he was reaching across the circle and hugging me. Holly was holding on to my hand now. Is he in jail for life? Amari asked finally. And plus, I'm sorry about your mom. He's going to be coming out soon, I said. I'm not exactly sure when. This is too deep, Amari said. No wonder you're so quiet, Red. You're all kinds of still water. When I first met Kira, she asked me about my people, and I told her my mom died. I waited for her to say something like, I'm so sorry, or you poor baby, or oh, sweetie, but she didn't. She was combing my hair at the time, and she stopped for a minute, and her hand got real shaky. I remember you told my mom that your mom died when you were 3, Holly said, and that you didn't really remember her. My mommy's still with us, Esteban said. I feel lucky for that. But why was her hand shaky? Ashton asked. Was she feeling sad for you? No, Holly said. That's the crazy part. She jumped up from her seat, then sat down again real fast and started tapping her feet like I wasn't telling the story fast enough. Tell them, Haley. I'm trying, I said. Kira asked me if I was Beryl Anderson's child, and I told her Beryl was my mom. Your moms knew each other? Amari asked. That's wild. Yes, Holly said. It's really wild. Our moms were pregnant together. When my mom told us that, I was like, wait, what? You and who and what? I laughed. But your mom just ignored you, I said. Kira came around the chair and crouched in front of me. Her face was all worried and sad, but it was happy too, remember? Holly nodded. She brushed my hair back away from my forehead and said, Your mom and I used to go to Tom's Diner over on Washington after our Lamaze classes. We'd order so much food the waitress would always ask if someone was joining us. And then Kira laughed. And I remember I wanted to laugh too, but my heart felt like it was competing with my tongue for space inside my mouth. So I just whispered to Kira, "You knew my mother." I stopped talking. It was hard to tell the story, but it wasn't hard. It felt like everyone in the room was leaning in and listening and really caring. It felt like everyone around me wanted everything to turn out all right. "We got you, Red," Amari said quietly. "You know that, right?" I nodded, smiled at him, and continued. Kira told me how much I looked like my mother and how when she first saw me, she thought maybe it was possible. But it was too much of a coincidence. But Brooklyn's small when you think about it, right? Everyone nodded. It must have been like a resurrection, Ashton said. Like here was somebody that could answer your questions. Yes, I said, that's so true. I had a million questions. There were like a million conversations I'd had in my mind with my mother. The first thing I asked Holly's mom was what stuff my mom loved. I remember she looked really sad then, I said. It was like she was going back to being with my mom and remembering everything about it. She thought for a long time, then finally said, "Your mom loved to laugh. Even when things felt like they were falling apart, she found a way to laugh." I wanted to ask what made my mom laugh, but I didn't. For some reason, knowing that she loved laughing was enough for that moment. "What about your dad?" Esteban asked. "Did Kira know your dad too?" I shook my head. She never met him. Kira said once she and my mom became friends, they had, like, their ladies thing going on. Like my mom with her girls, Amari said. Eating all that food after going to spin class? Women are crazy. Both me and Holly said, "Hey," at the same time. Amari threw his hands up. "You know, I'm just messing with y'all." "Tell them about the sun," Holly said, "the magic." "Oh yeah, there's a high window in Holly's kitchen," I said. And this crazy thing happened. The sky, like it shifted and everything got bright. And Kira laughed and said that she and my mom used to always talk about the light. How they thought light shifting was the dead sending us messages. Love messages. She said that every time the sun goes behind a cloud and then comes out again, that's a message from the other side. I looked over at Esteban. He was staring up at the sky as though he was waiting for the sun to send him a message. He had one hand in his pocket, and I knew he was touching his poem. For the whole time that Kira was braiding my hair, I said she talked about my mother, what she remembered, how they lost touch, how she heard about the accident. And I told her all about my uncle and how he made me laugh and how he always told me that my laugh reminded him of my mom. I stopped talking. No one said anything for a long time. Holly smiled at me and nodded, giving me a thumbs up. I felt lighter, free somehow, like I'd been carrying the weight of that story in me, not even knowing it was heavy, like so many bricks had been lifted off me. Esteban was hugging his legs again, but he was watching me now. "Your story makes me think that I'm happy my puppy's alive, Haley. I mean, because of your story, I can feel some hope, because no matter what, we're going to see him again. He didn't die, and that's good, even if everything has to change to be with him again. At least I could be with him again, right?" We all nodded. "He's still writing poetry," Esteban said, "and breathing." He looked at me. "Even though it's kind of sad what happened and everything, it feels happy, too, that we have each other. Like that thing Miss Laverne said about how we have to harbor each other, you remember?" I nodded. "I feel like your story does that. You're my same age, and you have to be strong for your dad. Makes me feel like I can be strong, too." And everyone else said, "Yeah, me too. For real." And that's where we're going to leave off for today. Looks like we will finish on Monday with our book. I hope everyone has a safe, peaceful weekend. Kind to each other. Take care of each other. Okay. Until Monday.